Welcome to another Relate Well with Dr. Rick Marks. You know, I'm hoping you're having a good day. And if you're joining me here in the next few minutes, I want to encourage you to stop in, say hi, be it on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook. Okay. So whoever's kind of tuning in, feel free to say hey and let me know you're there. And, leave some comments and statements if you'd like, share your thoughts about what we're going to talk about today. So, again, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, all right, any of those three platforms, you're watching me live right now, please type in, say, hey, Rick, let me know you're there. If you don't know me, that's okay too. Just say, hey, if you have a question, or a comment about something, go ahead and leave that question or comment in the comment section. I'll be able to see it, and we can have a dialogue as well. All right. So we're back to another Relate Well with Dr. Rick Marks, and today's topic is kindness and marriage. Kindness and marriage. We see a lot of commercials today about somebody doing something kind, and then that person who was received as a kindness does something kind to somebody else, and that person does something kind to somebody else. And you've seen those commercials, I'm sure, or a variation of them. It's like passing it forward. Kindness does kind of breed that kind of thinking, doesn't it? So if someone does something kind to you, you tend to want to go give it away, those kind of things. Have you been in a drive-through somewhere waiting to get your meal or whatever you ordered, and then next you pull up to the window and the person in front of you that paid for your meal? Remember how that felt, knowing that somebody didn't even know, cared enough about you to do something kind for you, and how that made you feel? Did you find yourself at some point going and doing the same thing for somebody else to kind of pay it forward? Kindness is a very powerful way of living life. Some people see kindness as a natural trait. All right. There are naturally people who are more kind than others. Yet also some people understand that kindness is like a muscle. All right. Kindness is like a muscle. You can actually develop the muscle of kindness. There's some research by John Gottman in his work around kindness and marriage. And he kind of sees kindness as a muscle that what he calls these masterful couples, the masters, not the disasters, but the masters couples, that they see kindness as a muscle that they're constantly developing and shaping and strengthening over the years. They never, ever let kindness become something of complacency. So we're going to talk about kindness and marriage today. Now, for those in the faith community, of course, we always talk about the love chapter in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13. The first two phrases are love is patient and love is kind. Love is patient, love is kind. We're going to take a look at the role of kindness in marriage and what the research shows and what we know actually happens when kindness is a strong element of who you are as a person and how that kindness plays out in your marriage with your spouse. Now, some of you who are joining me initially here, if you're here and you would like, please feel free to let me know you're here. Ask a question. You can engage with me. I'm actually live right now on YouTube, Facebook, and on Instagram. So feel free to ask a question, make a statement. I'll be monitoring the comment sections as we go along. All right, so let's start. Going back 1986, Dr. John Gottman, who today is considered one of the best researchers, the greatest researchers on marriage and what makes marriages work. So much so, he wrote a book called The Sound Marital House, where he talks about the 7 traits of what research shows masterful couples, the masters of relationships, masters in marriage, what they actually do to create strong, healthy, emotionally loving, and mature marriage relationships, as opposed to what he called the disasters. So in 1986, he was bringing into what he called the Love Lab. And in his Love Lab, he was bringing in couples, and researchers do what they do, right? And so he didn't just ask questions and get responses. He was also measuring physiological responses. He was measuring arousal, heart rate, all right, breathing. He started measuring physiological arousal. And from that research, he found that there are some couples that when you talk to them about the relationship, their physiological arousal was pretty high, which basically means they went into what's called a fight or flight response of the brain. Now, the fight or flight response of the brain is a biological, physiological component of the lower order brain, back down here, where the cerebellum, the amygdala is, the brainstem, that area of the brain. This is the part of the brain that has no ability to think or reason. It just feels. It's constantly scanning the environment for a threat. It also makes sure that your heart's beating. It makes sure you're breathing. It does those autonomic bodily functions for you, right? Medical death is when this part of your brain dies, you die. But this part of your brain is constantly scanning the environment for a threat. And the moment that it perceives a threat, then it is triggered at about 1/2000 of a second. And it starts putting into your bloodstream epinephrine, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. Now, you want this part of your brain working if you're about to get hit by an 18-wheeler at 90 miles an hour. You don't want to think about that, which is prefrontal cortex. You don't want to think about that threat. You want to react to that threat. And when that happens, then the brain is designed that when the lower brain perceives a threat that quickly, then what it does is dumps epinephrine, norepinephrine, and adrenaline into your bloodstream. It hijacks the rational mind and shuts your ability to process information down so that you react to the threat. Here's what he found in 86 in his Love Lab studies, that distressed marriages react to each other. In other words, when they're talking about the relationship, they're actually in a fight or flight response. Get that? It's almost like their brain is also perceiving they're about to get hit by an 18-wheeler. All right? It's the same physiological response of the brain. The threats are different, but the bodily reaction is the same. Did you get that? And so he referred to these couples as disasters. What he noticed, though, and what he called the masters, the really healthy couples, is that when they talked about the relationship, when they shared what was going on, how they met, how they felt, how they handled conflict, those kind of things, their physiological arousal was low. Basically, they weren't being triggered. And they were actually feeling love for each other. They were actually feeling goodness. They were feeling kindness. They were feeling a connection. You see, the disasters, because they're physiologically aroused into fight or flight, into a defensive posture, they don't feel love. They feel defensiveness. They don't feel connection. They feel fear. They feel insecure. They feel unsafe. And so they would handle conflict from the fight, flight, or freeze response of the brain. And so to do further study from the 1986 study, 1990, Gottman and his partner Lewison did a really large study with a bunch of couples, right? And one of the things they noticed in researching more about this physiological arousal was one piece, all right? It was the idea that what he calls the masters, that masterful couples, one thing they had in common that the disasters did not do is that the masterful couples, the masters, when he watched them in what he called the Love Lab, there was a place that was set up like a resort. They would go and live there, and for a short period of time. And while they're living there, interacting as couples as they do in their own little apartment, whatever, they're also measuring physiological responses, those kind of things. Cameras everywhere. One of the things he noticed was that the masters, one thing they did regularly is they had what he called bids for connection. Bids, B-I-D-S, for connection. A bid for connection is like, let's say I'm walking down the street with Luella and we're just, there's a momentary silence and I go, hey, look at that car over there. My dad had a car. That's a bid for connection. Luella, we may be driving down the road. She goes, oh, look at that bird. That's a bid for connection. Or maybe I come home from work and we're sitting down at dinner. I go, I read something today that was rather interesting. Bit for connection. Look on some work and she says, it's really a rough day. Bid for connection. It's a bid for connection. The question is, do you see it as a bid for connection? Because masterful couples, those bids for connection, what happens is the partner engages them in the bid. Oh, tell me about that. What was that like for you? What kind of bird is that? Oh, so tell me more about that car that reminds you of your dad's. You see, they begin to engage each other in the bids, because a bid is actually a way of connecting to your spouse. Here's what the research shows around the disasters. There are very few bids for connection. Rarely did you see them saying something in order to engage their partner. It was a lot of silence. And when they did engage, it wasn't a bid for connection. It was an expression of anger or resentment or criticism or some contemptuous remark. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, since those things that predict divorce 94%. And so there are very few bids for connections. And if there was a bid for connection, the partner didn't engage in it. Oh, tell me more about that. What was that like for you? Well, what happened at work? Either they didn't engage, they continued watching TV or playing their games or whatever they were doing. They didn't say anything, or they would criticize what their partner had said. And so one of the things that he realized is that kindness causes you to turn towards your partner. Unkindness causes you to turn away from your partner. In other words, when someone throws out a bid for connection, do you turn towards them or do you turn away from them? Masterful couples turn towards the spouse. Disasters don't engage or turn away from the spouse. You see, kindness turns towards, unkindness turns away. Now, someone is trying to connect here. So let's see what they want to say. It's someone known as Abundant Life Joy here on Instagram. So I think I'm not sure if I did that right, but if not, you feel free to say hey or whatever you need to do. All right, so let's continue. So kindness is that which turns towards your partner. All right, it turns towards your partner. Unkindness turns away from your partner. When you turn away from your partner, then what are you doing? Here's what the research shows. People who don't turn towards but turn away from the partner usually turn towards contempt, defensiveness, or criticism. They turn to contempt, defensiveness, criticism. Those three things are three of what Gottman calls the four horsemen of the apocalypse. The four horsemen of the apocalypse. The fourth of those four horsemen is stonewalling, just silence. Those things, when in a marriage, will predict divorce 93%, 94%, depending on who you read. All right. Suffice it to say, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which are contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling, which is silence, predict divorce 93%. But when you're criticizing, you're defensive, when you're not talking, when you're showing contempt, that's unkind. That's unkind behavior. And if you treat your partner in an unkind way, can you see what I'm about to say here now? When you treat your partner in an unkind way, in a sense, what you're really saying is, I don't value you. You see, we don't tend to be kind to things we don't value. we tend to be kind to the things that we value. And if you treat your partner in an unkind way on a regular basis as a pattern, as a way of being, as my mentor always said, as a way of being, I kind of like that phrase. If you treat your partner in an unkind way as a way of being over time, then it says you're devaluing them. If you devalue someone long enough, they're going to figure out that you don't value them. And that leads them then to create conversations in their head. One being, should I stay? And another one is, do you really love me? You see, love never treats people in a way that devalues them. Love never treats people in an unkind way. Now, someone may be thinking right now, okay, Marks, but let's say someone treats you in an unkind way. If they're treating you in a way that devalues you, if they treat you in a way that's unkind, why would you treat them in a kind way or in a way that values them when they don't treat you that way? Great question. Here's my answer to it. I treat people with kindness, even when they don't me. Why? It's not because they deserve kindness. I treat people with kindness and goodwill, respect, because that's who I want to be as a person. I'm not going to become who you are. Why would I lower myself to your level? I'm not going to be that. I treat people with goodwill and respect, humility, and empathy, which we call and relate well the four protectors of an us, the four ways of living that you'll become a healthy, mature adult, and you can create healthy, mature adult relationships in any relationship, particularly in your marriage, as far as it concerns you. You see, the reason you treat people that way is not because of them. You do because of who you want to be. It's because of who you want to be. It's who I choose to be. That's why I do those things. It isn't about whether you're deserving of kindness. Now, let me say this. I get some people treat you in a way that, in one sense, you feel like, all right, you do this, I'm going to do that, right? An eye for an eye. I believe this to be true. And all humans, because they exist, deserve to be treated with dignity. Dignity. Never, ever, ever disrespect a person's dignity. The fact that they're human means they have a right to dignity. Think about it. We even don't execute people on death row in unkind ways. We don't execute people on death row in a way that lacks dignity. They're still treated with dignity. Right? It's still a human life. And when we don't value human life, then we will treat people in a way. You get it. You get the message. You'll treat people in a way that devalues them. Sadly, there's a point in time in our marriage we quit valuing our spouse, and when we do, we begin to treat them in unkind ways. They're hurting, but we don't turn towards, we turn away. They had a rough day at work, or you've done something that's caused pain, and you don't care. Turning away. And disasters, what Gottman calls it, the disaster relationships, they divorce. If they stay together, it's just miserable. It's just miserable. And I don't believe, particularly for those listening to in the faith me, I don't believe that God is blessed when you live in a marriage to stay married for the sake of staying married when there is no love. I think God is more blessed when you love each other, not that you just don't divorce. You see, it doesn't say that the greatest of these is staying married and not divorcing. He says the greatest is love. All right. And I didn't get married to be miserable. I didn't get married to have a terrible relationship. I got married for a strong sense of usness, what we talk about and relate well. The core of our teaching is around the model of the four protectors of an us. You see, us wins, you both win, us lose, you both lose, two to make an us and one to kill it. And so everything you do, as far as concerns you, gives to you or gives to us. Kindness is saying, I value us. Kindness says, I value you. Kindness says, I value me. Do you get that? Kindness also says that you value yourself in a healthy way. People who are healthy and mature don't want to treat people in unhealthy, immature ways. Why? Because that says something about who they are. They value who they are and how they treat people. Why? Because they value who they want to be: healthy, mature, caring, nurturing, tender. And so that's why they treat you that way, because they also value themselves. And so Gottman's research, particularly the 1990 large study that we get a lot of the research today, and he created a whole system of therapy from this research, right? And many therapists, licensed therapists, marriage therapists, licensed social workers are being trained in the Gottman approach to marriage counseling. I've been level 2 certified. I really didn't want to do level 3 because it's more supervision type stuff, and I don't need that. I had enough with just 1 and 2, and I've had great teachers and mentors in my life who taught me a wonderful way to deal with things. All right, now, what are ways that you can show kindness in your marriage? What are some ways that you can actually show kindness in your marriage? And by the way, if you're listening to me on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram live, because we're live right now, if you have a question or a comment or a statement, go ahead and type it in. I'm monitoring, all right, what's taking place with you all out there. So feel free to ask a question, make a statement about what I'm saying, or if you have a question about it, feel free to ask. Let's engage in a dialogue, all right? Now, what are some ways to show kindness in your marriage? Number 1, now I lived this way pretty much about 25 years, all right? Number 1, you can show kindness every day by showing appreciation and gratitude for something of your partner every day. You can every day share something you're grateful for. Every day, show an appreciation for something your partner does. You see, because kindness looks for things that your partner does well. Unkindness looks for things they don't do well. Unkindness looks for things to criticize. Unkindness looks for things to make you look good and make them look bad. Unkindness doesn't allow you to see the positives in your partner, but it does allow you to see the negatives in them. How would you like it if it was turned on you and all they saw in you was your negatives? It would frustrate you in the long term just as much as it would me. But kindness is intentional. Kindness, it means that every day I'm looking for things about my wife. Her name's Luella, by the way. We've been married 38 years this coming February. Kindness means that every day I look for things to appreciate. Kindness means I look for things to be grateful for. Kindness means that I recognize there are things in my life that go on around me that I don't even think about or consider that she does. And I don't take them for granted. I value them and I show kindness towards them. You go, what am I talking about? Let me give an example. It was my 19th year of marriage. And I got out of the shower and I was walking over to our dresser drawer, which is where my t-shirts and underwear are kept. And my 19th year of marriage. And I know this sounds weird, but it actually happened. I opened up my drawer and I'm looking at the t-shirts and underwear in there. And I had this, I call it an epiphany, only because I felt it at the physiological level of my body. I felt this feeling with this thought attached to it. They're always in there. Matter of fact, I actually said it out loud. I opened it up, saw it, and I noticed they're always in there. And my wife was in the closet. She goes, I heard her in the closet go, what? I go, 19 years of marriage, whenever I open up this drawer, whenever I open it up, there's t-shirts and underwear in there. I don't think about them. I don't consider them. They're just there. Of course, by this time, she's thinking I'm acting weird. And she kind of looked at me, walked out of the closet, kind of looked at me with a puzzled look. And I said, no. Listen to me. Hear me out. I just realized I take that for granted. You do that regularly. I never consider it. I never think about it. But when I open up the drawer, I don't have to think about it. They're just there. And this is how I said it. I said, I recognize it with the fact that they're there without me thinking about them. Listen to how I said it. I said, is the evidence of your presence in my life. And I just realized if you weren't in my life, they wouldn't be there unless I made it happen. I take that for granted. You see, there are things around me that Luella was doing regularly all the time that I never considered. But if she was dead or gone, all of that would change. And I'm not ready for that change. So we can be grateful for it and grateful for those things. You see, thank you for that comment there, Abundant Life. I appreciate that. So from that point forward, I really strive to be appreciative every day. Appreciative every day. Why? It's kind. It's kind. It means I don't take her for granted. It means I value her and I appreciate and I'm grateful for the things she does. She doesn't do them out of a sense of duty. She does them as an act of love for me and our family. Number two, smile at your spouse every day. Smile at them. Don't just live life without a smile. I think kindness smiles at your spouse. I think kindness just smiles at them. Sometimes they'll look over me and I'll just smile and go like this, to be playful. It's kind. It lets her know that I love her, that I engage with her, that I love seeing her. It's playful. I think kindness smiles. I also know and believe strongly that unkindness doesn't smile. It'll be flat affect. It'll have a scorn. It'll be some negative. Kindness smiles. Every day, smile at your spouse. There's a thing in our brains called mirror neurons. Mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are these neurons in your brain that mimic what it sees. It mimics what it actually sees. It mirrors. This is why you go to a movie, and when you go to a movie, if you see someone smile, you'll smile. If you see someone frowning, your body will mimic it. It will mirror it, you see. And I think when we smile, we can trigger their mirror neurons. Just try this one day at a retail store, right? Walk up to a cash register when you're checking out and just smile and say, how are you doing? I had a good day today. And you watch them smile. What a blessing to give someone a smile. What a blessing to give someone a smile, you see. Number 2 way you can show kindness by smiling at them often. Do it every day. Number 3, I wrote here, show interest in the things that they show interest in. If your wife says, hey, I read this paper today, and there is a story about, that's a bid for connection. We talked about that earlier, remember? Turn towards them, face them, go, tell me about it. Show interest in it. I'm a 12-year Navy vet. You can see military stuff back here behind me, all right? I love military history, all right? My discharge from U.S. Navy is one of those documents up there, along with my PhD and 2 master's degrees sitting up there. You see, I love the military. I love military history. I'll read a book on a battle or leadership from Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War I, World War II, and I'll start telling Lil about it. Now, be honest, Lil could care less. But you know what she does? When I start to tell her about it, she turns towards me and she'll listen. If she can't, she'll say, now's not a good time. Can you tell me a little bit? I go, sure. She shows interest in things that interest me. I show interest in the things that interest her. You see, if your spouse is, now I messed up here a few days ago. She was talking about something, or to talk about something, and I was really engrossed in a TV show and a movie. And she said, you're not listening, put it on pause and turn towards me. Doop. She was right. I was being unkind because I just kept focusing on the show. Now you could say that was unkind of her. That was unkind of her to interrupt. But she doesn't know she's interrupting, you see. And let's be honest. I could put it on pause and turn towards her. Because in the end, I'd rather have her in my life than that show. You see what I mean? Show interest in the things that they find interest in. All right. Next, number 4, do something nice for them each day. And by the way, folks, this doesn't have to be something big or money. One of the things that I've done every day for 25 years now is every day, at least once, maybe twice a day, I call my wife just to tell her, hey, I was thinking about her. I don't call her because I want anything. I just say, hey, I was thinking about you. Love you. If I can't reach her, I leave her a phone message. I do it with my children. Why? I just think it's kind to let people know that you're thinking of them. You see, it's doing nice for them. They always know that dad's thinking about them, that husband's thinking about them. Do something nice for them. Maybe it's give them a cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe you say, hey, I'm going out to so-and-so. What can I get you? Hey, let me take you to lunch instead of you I'll come get you. We'll just run over there and get something inexpensive. Do something nice. Y'all were doing it when you were dating, weren't you? Keep it up. Keep it up. You did things nice to win their hearts. Continue to do things nice to keep their heart. You get that? You did things nice to win their heart. Now continue to do things nice to keep their heart. Number 5, and this is important. Love is patient and love is kind. Kindness shows patience as well. And to be patient is to be kind. Impatience creates an unkind spirit, and unkind people tend to be impatient. You see, be patient with them. Sometimes they're hurting more than you are. Sometimes they're messing up and not sure they're messing or not realize they're messing up. But whatever's going on, be patient with them. You don't take things personal. Allow them a little room to mess up and be human. If they say, I need 15 minutes, wait 15 minutes. Give them that space rather than try and control that space. You see, be patient with them. Being patient is showing kindness. And that number 6 here are ways to show kindness. It kind of goes along with that one. In showing patience, number 7 or number 6 are the ways to show kindness. Give grace. You mess up, they mess up. When you mess up, you want grace. When they mess up, you give grace too. Don't hang on to anger, resentment. Move to grace. You know what I've learned is a lot of times when we mess up in our relationships and our marriages, we didn't mess up because we had some nefarious motive, right? Some intention to hurt you and cause you, to gig you with the knife or with an ice pick, to really hurt you. A lot of time, I think most time, when people do things in the marriage, their motives were good, but their methods stopped. Like that. Kindness will cause you to listen. Unkindness will cause you to talk. So here, in recap, here are the ways to show kindness. Number 1, share appreciation every day. Number 2, smile every day at them. Number 3, show interest in the things that they're interested in. Number 4, do something nice for them, at least daily. Number 5, be patient with them. To be patient is to show kindness. To show kindness is to be patient. Number 6, give grace to them. Just as much as you want grace, give grace to them. Realize that maybe some of the things they did that caused harm, their intentions weren't to cause harm, even though they did. Just give a little grace. And number 7, listen well in conflict. Kindness will listen, right? Unkindness wants to talk. Now, if you do these things, if you choose to do these things, right? If you choose to be a kind person, a mature person who loves in kind, mature ways, all right? Then what would be the outcomes for your marriage? All right. What would be the outcomes of this? Number one outcome, what difference would it make if you think of it that way? What would be an outcome would different make? Number one difference that it would make is you would actually find yourself being much more accepting of your partner as they are. And you quit trying to create them in something you want them to be, or you try and control them, you try and change them. You actually start to accept them as they are, and they would feel accepted as they are. So much so they probably motivated to do the same thing to you. Number two, you'd actually find yourself supporting your partner a lot more. You'd find yourself supporting them a lot more. There's a lot of power in coming alongside and bearing a burden with someone. To know that you don't have to walk life alone. To know that in the tough times, there is somebody with me to support me. Got it? I think showing kindness causes you to be more supportive of your partner. And number three, a difference outcome that it makes is that you would also be more encouraging of your partner. You'd actually be more encouraging, not discouraging. You'd encourage them to pursue their dreams, encourage them to take their time, encourage them to study more. You encourage them to, hey, go get help. It's all right. You encourage them to forgive themselves. You'd be more encouraging of them. And lastly, I believe, and to me of the four, this is probably the biggest one. When you show kindness to each other and you live this way as a way of being, right? That you every day you're working that kindness muscle, if you will. I believe the greatest outcome, other than just acceptance, support, and encouraging, is you both will feel, listen, you both will feel safe with each other. So safe that you'd be willing to take off your mask and let them see the real you, knowing that if I show you the real me, you will still love me and accept me. And even when I've messed up, you're still going to be kind. That's a great motivator to want to transform one's life and make a difference that makes a difference. So there are the ways that kindness will benefit your marriage. You become more accepting, you become more supportive of each other, you encourage each other, and you create a very safe place for what we say in our world, for us to blossom. For us to blossom. Can you see the central theme around Relate Well is not living for you, it's living for us. When us wins, you both win. When us loses, you both lose. It takes two to make an us and one to kill it. Kindness breeds usness. Unkindness kills usness off. And if you continue to live a life of being unkind to each other, you will thrive and us will die. And whether you really thrive or not, in my mind, is open to question. So there you have it. Kindness in marriage. Love is patient and love is kind. You see, every day you get opportunities to practice kindness. Be looking for them. Be looking for them. Look for them. Someone cuts you off on the road. Don't speed up and stare at them. Unkind. Let the person go on. That person didn't wake up that morning and go, hey, I'm going to wake up and run Rick Marks off the road. That guy didn't even know me. That person never seen me before. They don't know me. They're just being who they are. Give grace and don't become who they are by engaging their foolish behavior. Don't engage a fool in their folly. Why? Well, number one, it's unkind. But when you do, you lower yourself to the level of a fool. If you want to live the level of fool, feel free. I think you get the picture. Kindness turns towards. Kindness makes us patient. Kindness will cause us to hear our partner. Kindness will want to listen. Kindness says you have value. Kindness says you matter. Kindness says you are loved and lovable. And yet, that Bible verse in 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient and love is kind. Maybe there's something there we all need to put into practice and understand the value of the statement that love is kind. I have found it makes marriage a lot sweeter. This is Dr. Rick Marks with another Relate Well relationship segment. Have a great day.